Hello, welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. Joe San Diego here, along with Kobe Lambert from the podium finish, and Adam Lemeries, our supercars expert. Definitely want to give a big shout out to our Ultimate Sports Radio Network listeners on USRN Radio, and a big thank you to our Patreon, Colin the Show Mark. We want to give a big shout out to Robin for her past 5 months of support, which has helped us with software subscription, and her support will always be appreciated and remembered. And we encourage everyone to invest in the Grid Network, be like our Patreons, monthly subscribers, or a one-time contribution through Buy Me a Coffee. Link in the video description below. And we encourage everyone to participate in the chat room because we're talking just one race this weekend, NASCAR Cup Series at Phoenix International Raceway. And the last time the Cup Series saw one team swept the West Coast was 2018 with Stewart Haas Racing, and that was with one driver only, Kevin Harvick, winning all three rounds. And this weekend, a win by Larson, Bowman, Elliott, or William Byron will mean Hendrick Motorsports swept the West Coast swing. Kobe, starting with you, is Hendrick already the team to beat this early in the season?
Oh yes, definitely. Look what Hendrick Motorsports has been able to accomplish in the last couple of weeks. With Kyle Larson winning Fontana and Alex Bowman taking a surprise win last weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It certainly seems like the momentum is on Hendrick's side, and Phoenix Raceway looking at their past success here. Kyle Larson winning the championship last year and the race. Chase Elliott did the same the year before in 2020, but that's been the fall race, not the spring race. I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, but Hendrick Motorsports hasn't had nearly the same amount of success in the spring race than they have the fall race. But still, considering the early season momentum, Hendrick is certainly one of the teams to beat this weekend at Phoenix Raceway.
Yeah, Hendrick Motorsports is on. Hendrick Motorsports right now is on a lot of momentum on their side. You mentioned Kobe. Kyle Larson won at Alex Cup Speedway in Fontana. Last weekend we saw Alex Bowman winning at Las Vegas. So could they sweep all three races? It could happen, and I'll let our viewers know when it comes to pick a winner. I'm going with the Hendrick Motorsports driver. Which one? Well, I won't say to the end of the show. So stick around. I think Hendrick Motorsports is the team to beat right now. But it's still early in the season. There are a lot of great tracks coming up. Next weekend we go to Atlanta, and we have a short track, Martinsville Speedway. We also have action at Rushmore Speedway on the dirt on Easter weekend. But to me right now, Hendrick Motorsports is the team to beat with this new next-gen car.
The new next-gen car, it's been really interesting. We've been talking about the parity where we've seen teams that we didn't see up towards the front, up in the front. But still, Hendrick Motorsports, they somehow find a way to get there at the end. And last race weekend, we were all convinced it looked like it was going to be Joe Gibbs in victory lane. But instead, we saw that late caution change the complexity of the race where two tires from the Hendrick Motorsports teams got them the win. Once Kyle Busch was stuck side by side, he was never able to go and battle Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman for that win. Now, Phoenix, of course, as we know, as you mentioned, Cody, it hosts a championship race where we've seen the last 2 years, Rick Hendrick has won the two season finale races with Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson winning the race and the championship. But over the last 10 years here, during the West Coast swing, 0 Hendrick wins. The last time, 2011, that was Jeff Gordon. Most of the spring race winners are Joe Gibbs Racing drivers, including Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, and Kyle Busch. One driver, of course, with a lot of wins, but still winless since essentially 2020, Kevin Harvick. So, Adam, I've got to start with you. When it comes to this spring race, is this the opportunity for Joe Gibbs Racing to get that win? Because they looked good at Las Vegas last race weekend. Will that continue this weekend?
I do believe it will. You mentioned Kyle Busch. He came this close. If that late race caution didn't happen, Kyle Busch would have won at a some track in Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and I would have won, pick a winner, and been up near Kobe. But anyway, Joe Gibbs Racing has a lot of momentum. And one driver you mentioned, Joe, is Denny Hamlin. He hasn't had a lot of success so far for this 2022 season. We saw what happened at Daytona. He got caught up in the big one. Then we went to Auto Club Speedway in Fontana. Didn't have a. Then Las Vegas. Didn't really have a good run at those two tracks. Well, we're here at Phoenix International Raceway, the Valley of the Sun. Joe Gibbs Racing has been really good here, so I anticipate we see Joe Gibbs Racing toward the front, all race long. Don't be surprised if one of those Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas deals a win away from Hendrick Motorsports.
And Joe, as you were mentioning, they looked really good last weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And Adam, remember what happened if it wasn't for that late race caution? Totally agree with you. Kyle Busch or his teammate Martin Truex Jr. would have more than likely won that race, and that's why you saw the frustration at the end of the race when Kyle Busch lashed out at Alex Bowman, basically saying that he lucks into all of his wins, which he's not necessarily wrong about in certain aspects, but overall, it was we know how Kyle Busch is when he doesn't win. He's very frustrated. He doesn't want to finish second. He wants to finish first every single weekend. You can't be mad at that when looking at a race car driver's desire to win. But I think this is certainly a great weekend for them to get back to victory lane with Kyle Busch, Barton Truex Jr., Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell's ran well at Phoenix, and Denny Hamlin, who's had a really tough start to the 2022 season. I think this will be a good opportunity for him to turn things around.
Good opportunity to turn things around for him. It's been a rough start for the season. I mean, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, to make that mistake while getting out of pit road and essentially ruining his race, getting caught up in the crash at Daytona, it just hasn't been Denny Hamlin's year. I'm starting to wonder because last year he went the entire regular season winless. Not until we got to the Southern 500 he got his first win. I think this year you definitely need to look at getting a win to get into the playoffs. Yes, we might have 3, maybe 2 spots in the playoffs are going to be through points, but the way they're running right now, I mean, the points as we saw, it looks very close, and Denny Hamlin is nowhere on that list. Now, one of the teams last year that I think was on nobody's list when it came to playoffs, contending for wins, has to be the teams that are part of the Richard Childress Racing Alliance. They've been looking really good this year. Fontana, Tyler Reddick ran well until flat tire and contact ruined a strong day. His teammate Austin Dillon got a runner-up. Daniel Suarez with Trackhouse Racing, part of the RCR Alliance. Top 5 finish, led with 3 laps to go until Kyle Larson got around him. And then you look at last weekend. Ross Chastain led over 80 laps, another top 5 finish for Trackhouse Racing. Let's not forget Eric Jones. He was running strong in the top 10 all day last weekend until that late crash. And at Fontana, he was up there towards the front with Tyler Reddick. It looked like it's going to be Tyler Reddick or Eric Jones getting that win. Can we see Reddick, Jones, Chastain, or any other driver part of that RCR Alliance take the win at Phoenix?
I don't know if I'd go as far to say that they're going to win the race, but I certainly think they're going to be really strong again. And that's quite an impressive group of drivers you mentioned there, Joe. I've been very surprised to see how strong Trackhouse Racing's been to start off the season. You remember Daniel Suarez got turned on the front stretch last weekend at Las Vegas. Unfortunate end to his race, but the week before he was battling for the win late with Kyle Larson. that really has to be encouraging for team owners, Justin Marks and Pitbull, to see Suarez running so well, despite what happened last weekend at Vegas and Ross Chastain leading over 80 laps. Really great run for Ross, showing how far he's come as a driver. Talked about last week on Wrap Up how Ross has matured and developed as a driver, along with Suarez as well. And I could definitely see Chastain and Suarez contending for wins down the road in the future. And Eric Jones, while the Petty 43 is back, running strong like it deserves to. I think we could see Jones continue to have some really great runs as well. And Tyler Reddick, I think he could win a couple of races this year. He's too fast in that 8 car not to win. But out of the group, if I had to pick one driver out of the RCR group to potentially win this weekend at Phoenix, I think it certainly has to be Tyler Reddick. I can't see him going too much longer without getting a victory, because you don't have fast cars like that and just keep losing all the time.
I completely agree with you, Kobe. And, it's been really nice to see Trackhouse Racing have a strong start to this 2022 season. And I don't think it'll be too much longer before we see either Ross Chastain or Daniel Suarez in victory lane. And you mentioned Tyler Reddick. I think he will win this year. Will it be tomorrow in Phoenix? Yeah, it could sure happen. He's been really good here last couple of years. We can't forget he did compete in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, so he does have experience running here at Phoenix International Raceway. But I gotta say, the RCR Alliance it's been awesome to see all those cars up front all season long. And I agree with Kobe. I think Tyler Reddick has a real good shot to take a win tomorrow away from Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick Motorsports, and we cannot forget Team Penske in the Fords.
When it comes to this group of drivers with the RCR Alliance, I see them getting wins, like you've all said. I see Eric Jones. He knows how to win. He's won the Southern 500 at Darlington. He's won the Coke Zero 400 at Daytona. Very close to a win in Fontana. We saw last year, even at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, he had a really good run. He was the only driver that was not part of the Big Three to finish in the top 10. It looked like it was going to repeat again, but of course, we saw what happened towards the end once he got loose and hit the wall. Tyler Reddick, I think this is going to be one of his best tracks. He always seems to do good here, including his rookie year when he came out, surprised a lot of people. If he has a good car again, I see him doing well. And it's really interesting because we've been to a 2-mile oval and a 1.5 miles where aerodynamics, horsepower have been a big issue in the years past, and they were up front. This isn't a short track and they're up front like we've seen in the past. These were 1.5 mile ovals, 2-mile ovals, and they were up front. If they continue this, they're going to be one of the contending teams for wins all season long.
Yeah, that just shows you how far that program has come along and how they've really gotten much better over the last couple of years. And we talked about the Chevrolets, the Joe Gibbs Racing Toyotas. But looking at the Fords, as Adam said, Team Penske seen Joey Logano win here before, and he can certainly do it again. Ryan Blaney, not exactly the best track for him. Austin Cindric, he's had success here in Xfinity from winning the Xfinity Championship in 2020 to unfortunately losing it to Daniel Hemrick last year. Still a lot of great runs from Austin Senior here at the Xfinity level. Stewart's Haas Racing seems to be all over the place with some of these cars running well, some mid-pat, or others crashed out like last week. RFK Racing, mid-pat, Brad Keselowski crashed last week, took out his former Penske teammate, Ryan Blaney, who wasn't really happy at all. The one driver who's been consistent, going for his fourth top 10 finishes, and a big surprise so far to start off 2022. Eric Almirola in his final full-time season as a NASCAR Cup Series driver. Starting with you, Adam, do you think the Fords, are they real contenders this weekend?
I do think so, Kobe. And Kevin Harvick has the most wins in the springtime at Phoenix International Raceway. I believe it's 9. And what team does he drive for? Stewart-Haas Racing. Who's the manufacturer? Ford. Kevin Harvick is a sure contender to win tomorrow. And, you know, it's been really cool to see Eric Almirola, you know, in the top 10 for this year. Could he get his fifth straight top 10 finish tomorrow in Phoenix? Absolutely. But I think you can never count out the Fords, especially Brad Keselowski is a really good driver there. So you could see Kevin Harvick or Brad Keselowski win tomorrow at Phoenix International Raceway.
When it comes to the Force, I think I have a little bit of a different view of them right now when it comes to contending in the race. When it comes to contending, I'm looking at Penske, particularly Joey Logano. He is one of the drivers that has won here before. I think he could get the job done. Austin Cindric, success here, as you mentioned, in the Xfinity Series. How will that translate in the Cup Series? Because ever since the Daytona 500 win, I think we've seen sort of that reminder you're a rookie this year because got a little bit of trouble at Las Vegas Speedway. Still rebounded. That team, I think, is looking good. If he has a good, clean race, he's going to be in contention. Blaney is hit or miss. It seems like he's either really fast here or they just missed the setup and they're just not in contention at all. And lastly, when it comes to Stewart-Haas racing, we've seen some potential from Chase Briscoe running up front. Las Vegas didn't end it the way he wanted it to go. Eric Almirola, Mr. Consistency, in the top 10. I anticipate him to be in the top 10 finish with a good race. But I don't see Cole Custer, Kevin Harvick contend for wins. Once they redone this track, Kevin Harvick has not been as dominant as he used to be. And then when it comes to Roush Fenway, Keselowski Racing, I just don't see them being exactly up towards the front. They're making progress, without a doubt, but I just don't think they're going to be up there contending for a win this weekend.
Both of you brought up really excellent points. So going back to Adam said about Kevin Harvick, there used to be a time where this wasn't just Phoenix Raceway. This was Kevin Harvick Raceway because it seemed like every time he come here to Phoenix, he was the guy who was going to win each and every week. But since they reconfigured this track and moved the start finish line right before it get into a dog leg, it seems like Kevin Harvick's really lost his touch around Phoenix, and we really haven't seen the same type of dominance we used to see from Harvick here. So I'm not so sure if I should pick him for pick a winner or not because of Harvick's lack of success since that change with the racetrack and and his teammate Eric Almirola. I'm starting to become a big believer in his form earlier this season. I remember when we were talking about him past shows. Are we going to see Almirola continue his 100% top 10 finisher? A lot of us said no, and then he went out there and surprised us. But now I'm starting to turn into an Almirola believer. And Joe mentioning Chase Briscoe really showing that he can be a true contender lately. And we got to try to see a little bit more consistency from Chase Briscoe, see if he can put together a full race instead of having things go wrong at various parts. I think Chase is certainly going to have a much better season than he did during his rookie campaign, which he saw a lot of frustrating things happen. I think a year of experience is about having practice and qualifying. That's only going to aid his development as a driver. And getting back to the questions for the real contenders this weekend, I certainly think so. But if I had to tip my hat, if I'm doing pick a winner, I'm going to go with a Chevy or a Toyota. And Team Penske's has been a part of the big three teams in the NASCAR Cup Series for years, and Brad Keselowski's been a huge part of that success. But no more Brad Keselowski at Team Penske, now an owner and driver at RFK Race, and their success at Daytona since winning the duels has been limited, with a lot of growing pains, which is to be expected. Early in the season, new role for Keselowski, brand new car, and a lot to adjust to. How much time will they need before they can finish in the top five consistently, or is that too much to expect right now?
To be in the top five consistently, I think that's a little bit too much right now, especially for both drivers, Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski. I anticipate probably once we start going towards the 10th or the 11th race of the year, where they've gotten those learning curves between the crew chief, the driver, the engineers, and everybody sorted out with the new car being there as well too. I think that's when you can start anticipating them to finish in the top five a bit more consistently. Right now, I just feel like, especially since we're doing so many different tracks from the super speedway, 2 mile, mile and a half, mile oval. Then you look at the rest of the races, they're just trying to make sure they're learning everything and at least bringing home good finishes. Those good finishes are top 10 finishes. Top fives, hey, they'll take them. That'd be great. If they could pull off a surprise win, especially if they use strategy with a late race caution or overtime, even better. I think realistically, get those top 10 finishes, log the laps, learn, and build that team.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I think I think once we get toward the middle of the season, I think we'll know who the contenders are. Right now, RFK Racing, with Brad Kozlowski, you know, Brad's at it, like you mentioned, he's at a new team, new crew chief, and it takes time, for everyone to get used to everyone. I think once we get toward middle of the season, I think we'll see RFK Racing competing for top fives. But right now, if you can have a top 10 finish with either Brad Kozlowski or Chris Buescher, I think it's a win for them. They're learning each and every race that they go to, and once we get toward the middle of the season, I don't think it'll be long before we see RFK Racing competing for top fives and even a win or two.
Yeah, I think expecting them to finish in the top five right now consistently is really too much to expect right now. You both brought up some really good points. This is not the same Roush Fenway Racing team we saw at the end of 2021 season, because over the off season there's been so many moving parts. A lot of new people with fresh ideas been brought into the organization, and when there's so much changeover, it takes time for all of that to gel and get everything figured out. And like you were saying, I think as we get later on into the season, we're going to start to see RFK Racing get much better, and maybe we'll see Brad Keselowski start to click off some top tens, even top fives here and there. Chris Buescher as well. But I think it's certainly going to take some time for them to get that program together. They obviously build a really fast super speedway car, so I think they're going to be looking forward to Atlanta coming up in Talladega. I think they'll probably be their best chance of getting the top five finish in the upcoming weeks and months ahead. But overall, just going to take some time for them to get everything figured out. No, this is a big change for Brad Keselowski, now an owner and driver at the top series of NASCAR, and the car is arguably not as good as the car that he was in Team Penske. So for Brad to get that car up to the level where he wants it, there's going to be a lot of growing pains. He even said himself that this was a big leap of faith to leave a comfortable situation at Team Penske to get into an ownership role at a team that's right now not as good as Team Penske on the racetrack. And he expected to be growing pains. He talks about with both RFK racing cars missing the A main at the Busch Light Clash at the LA Coliseum, which was a really frustrating day for him. Then winning both duels, so he's already experienced the highs and the lows. I've been an owner driver already. There's definitely going to be a lot more lows, more than likely, and then there's going to be some highs as well. It's going to be interesting to watch this team grow throughout the 2022 season. And we've yet to talk about one team much in 2022, not really since the Daytona 500 pre-race and wrap-up shows, and that's Harrison Burton and the Wood brothers. He run up front in the Daytona 500, got spun X in turn two, and did a blowover flip on the backstretch. And then Las Vegas, once again, caught up in a crash, and he's not in a good place at all points-wise to start off his rookie season. What is a realistic goal for Harrison Burton and the Wood brothers this weekend, considering they've had such a rough start?
I think if they can have at least a top 15, the top 20 finish, I think that'll be good for them. Like you mentioned, Kobe, it's Harrison Burton's rookie year, and he's with a new team in Wood Brothers Racing. So I think to me, like we mentioned with RFK Racing, it takes time, for everyone to work together. As long as Harrison Burton is consistent with Wood Brothers Racing, I think we could see Harrison Burton contend for top 5 and top 10 later on in the season. But for this weekend at Phoenix, if they could have a top 15, top 20 finish, I think that'll be good for them going forward.
I think you hit it right on the head, Adam. Top 15, top 20. Big thing, log those laps, avoid the trouble. You've had 3 races where you got in the trouble. None of them really his fault. Auto Club, wrong place, wrong time when he started crashing in front of him. Then, of course, last race weekend, again, wrong place, wrong time. You got to drive where you can avoid those crashes, avoid those mistakes, and top 20 finish, that would be great for the Wood Brothers team. And I think you just perfectly said it when it comes to top 20, top 15s, logging those laps, finishing on the lead lap. Because then once we start coming back to these tracks again later on in the season, that's where, okay, let's aim for a top 10 finish. Let's aim at getting to the point where we're leading some laps here and there. Because they have that alliance with Penske. This isn't the Wood Brothers of the past where they were their own little team. They got that alliance with Roger Penske. They have good equipment. We've seen drivers like Blaney go out there, get wins. We've seen Matt Benedetto, Paul Menard lead laps with that team, put themselves in contention, and I think it won't be long till Harrison Burton will put himself in contention. Because remember, he is a rookie, and there's the rookies, they're not exactly having the easiest time. It sort of reminds me of the mid 90s, especially when Jeff Burton was a rookie in the number 8 race bestest Ford. You could look at highlights of some of his big crashes, but at the end, we all know how Jeff Burton's career turned out. I think Harrison Burton, just giving him some of that patience, and like you said, Adam, top 15, top 20, finish all the laps, second half of the season, aim higher.
Yeah, I definitely think a top 15, top 20 finish is certainly a realistic expectation for Harrison Burton this weekend. And going from Xfinity to Cup, it's definitely a huge jump in terms of competition and preparation. So it's not going to be easy for any rookie out there. And I know there's going to be a lot of pressure on Harrison Burton. You mentioned the alliance with Team Penske, not the Wood Brothers team of old, where it was just his own satellite. Well, I mean, not satellite. Well, it was just his own, little program. But since he's essentially in a Penske car, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Harrison Burton to perform. And it's easy once things are going wrong in the Cup Series for the driver to lose his confidence, and that's the one thing that can't happen to Harrison Burton. Although he's had a rough start to the season, best thing he can do is try to go out, have a mistake-free race, finish in the top 15, top 20, and slowly start to build confidence. And Joey brought up a good point. Some of the tracks we go to twice this year, and when he goes back the second time later in the year in the fall, he'll have the experience, been on the track in a Cup car, and he can apply what he learned during these during the early season races. When we get to the races later on in the season, Harrison Burton can show how much he's grown as a rookie driver.
Yeah, potential to show how much he's developed as a rookie driver, and that's going to be something worth watching in the second half of the season. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network right here all season long, especially next weekend when we'll have a big weekend of racing coming up, and we'll be covering it. And Thursday on Sirius XM Radio, Larry McReynolds brought up a concern about the tire setups here at Phoenix Raceway. Goodyear's air pressures is no lower than 14. That's what they're recommended. However, he anticipates teams are going to go as low as 12. Larry McReynolds also said this could damage the sidewalls of the cars when the cars go below, cut short that dog leg, and go from the banking to the flat and back up to the banking, in which you damage those tires, they could blow out, especially you have that lower air pressure. And now the underbody, it has a big role in producing that ground effect downforce. So it'll be really interesting, as he said, seeing practice, seeing qualifying, who's going to be the first driver to shortcut the dog leg. Kobe, considering the tire issues we've seen so far, including Tyler Reddick at Fontana, and the trouble you get if you have too many flat tires and can't get going, could this change the way drivers enter the dog leg?
To be honest, Joe, I don't really see that being a big issue. Oh, yeah, it could be a concern, but I still think we're gonna see the drivers take the dog leg and do everything they've been doing in recent weeks. And if there's gonna be some issues with the car, like NASCAR's been doing already with the tires, take it back to the R&D center and try to figure out a solution for the future. So I don't think we're gonna see any change the way we see the drivers race Phoenix this weekend and enter the dog leg at all.
Yeah, I agree with Kobe. I think we'll see drivers still using the dog leg. Trying to get that advantage. Gaining more positions. Um, so so even though what we've seen so far this year with the tires, I think drivers will still use the dog leg this weekend at Phoenix.
I anticipate we're going to see some drivers use that dog leg shortcut and no problems. One thing is if we have multiple restarts, because we've had to have races that had a ton of cautions here, will that start to affect the diffuser underbody? And some team puts just a little too much with that air pressure, as Larry McGround suggested. Could see an issue where you have a long run and that tire gives out way too early. Now, speaking about the cautions, last two races had 12 cautions each. Daytona 500, 7 cautions. That's the race with the fewest number of cautions so far. Adam, will this next gen car be a big handful this weekend as it has been in Fontana and Las Vegas?
I don't think so. I think even though what we've seen at Auto Club in Las Vegas, I think it'll be really good racing all around. I don't think it'll be a big handful for the drivers. We're 4 races into the season now, so I think drivers know what to expect. Um, I think we'll see at least probably seven to seven to 7 to 9 cautions. For some spins potentially. But I think it's gonna be interesting to see where it all develops. The fans have loved this type of racing so far, and a lot of fans can't wait to see how everyone does at Phoenix.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another handful once again. And this is exactly what drivers and fans have been asking for.
Yep.
A car that's hard to drive at NASCAR's top level. And in recent years with the 550 horsepower package, a lot of people criticized that, saying that NASCAR second tier series or NASCAR Xfinity series should not be the hardest car to drive. The Xfinity car should not be much harder to drive or more complex, more challenging than a NASCAR Cup Series car. And I think it's safe to say with this new next gen car, this is certainly the hardest car to drive in all of NASCAR. And with all the cautions we've seen in the last couple of weeks, showing you drivers really up on the wheel, fighting it hard, having some issues getting sideways. And I think we're going to see the same thing happening this weekend at Phoenix. But I think as the drivers get more used to the next gen car through this first stretch of the season, we're probably going to see a lot less cautions.
With this race, especially being just a mile oval, and the banking is not a bigly bank track like you see at Las Vegas, Auto Club, or Daytona. I see this is going to be a little bit more of an issue when it comes to getting that much downforce onto the tires and taking care of the tires throughout the run. Too much slipping and sliding, you're going to wear out those tires. Tire management, I think, is going to be a big key. And this race is only 500 kilometers long. So it's not a long race, 310 miles. Potential for frequent pit stops if we get a lot of yellow flags. Like we mentioned, 12 cautions already for the last two races at Fontana and Las Vegas. And since 2011, only one driver has started worse than 20th and won. Only 3 times in their track history, back in 1995 with Ricky Rudd, 2002 with Matt Kenseth, and of course that was the old track, the old layout. So qualifying is going to be very important today. Kobe, for a team that qualifies 20th or worse, what are the chances of winning? Is it greater because we have those stage break cautions, the same, or even less?
Well, Joe, I think it really depends on what type of equipment you're in, and as we see nowadays, qualifying doesn't really matter that much in the larger grand scheme of things. But it's really interesting. We haven't really seen that many drivers come from the back at Phoenix and win because other tracks. Sometimes you see, a Hendrick car, Gibbs car, Penske car go to the rear and find their way to the front. But overall, thinking about qualifying as a whole, I think nowadays if you're in a top tier car, it doesn't matter where you qualify at all because it's a lot easier to come through the field from the back to the front than it used to be. So if we have a Hendrick, Gibbs, or Penske car starting at the back, I still look for them to be a contender for the win. So I think that the chances of winning, whether you're starting, 10th or 30th, is probably the same. But it really depends on what equipment you're in.
I completely agree with you, Kobe. 110%. I you know I think if you have at least if you're if you drive for Hendrick Motorsports, Team Penske, or Joe Gibbs, if you start 20th or worse, I think you'll find yourself come toward the front all race long. But if you're a team like, say, Stewart-Haas Racing or RCR or potentially Trackhouse Racing, I think if you have a good qualifying setup, good pit stops, then you can come to the field. But if you start 20th or worse, you're going to have good pit stops all day long, be there at the right time, when it comes to each stage, and you could find your way toward the front.
I think you bring up a really good point. How many teams are we going to see just focus on a qualifying setup during practice to get that fast lap in, start towards the front, have that better starting position, have that better pit stall selection, and try to stay up front? Because if we have a lot of caution flags, as long as you're not the caution, you're in a good spot. Or if you're towards the back and if you're not handling well, you're going to have a lot of issues. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happened qualifying today. Of course, all the coverage on Fox as well. But now, before we wrap things up, it's time for Pick a Winner.
That's right, Joe. It's time for Pick a Winner. And we only have one race this weekend. The NASCAR Cup race in the Valley of the Sun at Phoenix International Raceway. And if you want to get on our leaderboard, use the hashtag Pick a Winner on social media, and you'll see yourself on screen. And right now, we take a look at the leaderboard. Kobe is in first place with 4. I'm in second with 3. But our colleague Ben Schneider is in third. And we have a logjam behind him with 1, including our own Joe Samaniego, Brett, Ed Hunter, and Braden Crossland. And I do want to, if all of us at Grid Network, we want to wish Brandon a very happy birthday today. With that being said, it's now time that we make our picks. Now, Joe, we all know last Sunday you went with Kyle Larson in the HendrickCars.com Chevrolet. Are you going to go with him for 2 straight weeks here at Phoenix?
As much as I should, the side of me is telling me don't do it. I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick. I believe he is going to get his first career win. Those RCR cars are looking good this year. He has been good in essentially every race this year in the top 10. Just bad luck when it came to Daytona, Fontana. He did finish in the top 10 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, but that's why I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick. He has success here at this track, and I think this is going to be his breakout race.
Last weekend, Joe, you went with Kyle Larson. Well, I didn't have good success with him at the Daytona 500, so I'm hoping I get him. I hope he comes through me again, because I'm going with Kyle Larson to win this weekend at Phoenix International Raceway and make it a Hendrick Motorsports West Coast sweep. So it's going to be interesting to see how Kyle Larson does tomorrow in the Valley of the Sun. Now, Kobe, it's your turn. Who are you picking to win the race tomorrow at Phoenix International Raceway?
Well, I'm going to go with the driver who was in contention to win last weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway until that late race caution ruined things. A battle between teammates, and this driver also came close to unseating Kyle Larson for the championship. Battling him in the closing stage of Phoenix. I think Martin Truex Jr. is going to get his first win of the season for Joe Gibbs Racing.
That's a good pick, Kobe.
Very good pick. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what all happens. We encourage everyone, hashtag pick a winner, and be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network right here on YouTube, and follow us throughout social media, and visit our website, gridranking.com. Of course, first Sunday of April is coming up. The Grid Ranking for 2022 will be released, 6th annual Grid Ranking, and we encourage everyone to invest through Patreon. Calling the show, Mark has been keeping us on the air, keeping the Grid Ranking going throughout our tenure here. And you could do Buy Me a Coffee, where you could do just a one-time contribution rather than a monthly contribution with Patreon. And of course, visit public.com. You get $5 in free stock if you use the referral code GRIDnet. There you can learn about investing in the stock market, use their tools, listen to their podcast, and really make it where you're learning, you feel comfortable in the stock market. And especially when it comes to the stock market, a lot of people are following that with everything going on. With that said, for Kobe Lance from the Podium Finish and Adam Lemeries, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.